What I do, it's hard to say because it's not really based in reality. I work in music publishing. I've been doing it for a very long time. You find these young writers, most of the people that I've ever signed, they have never had a publishing deal. You find them and you watch them grow and elevate their careers and be inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. And it's just the coolest thing ever. I just love it. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Well, we made the trek from Nashville, where you and I normally see each other, but it's great to have you in Atlanta.
It's good to be down here.
I'm excited because of several things. One, you and I have a history off and on for a couple years before pandemic, and then during that. But every time we're together, I enjoy it. Every time we're hanging, we're talking about something cool and fun, and
Same.
and dreaming a little bit. So
Same. Very few times in your life you meet an individual, and I knew when we met, it's like there's a friend for life, and
that's awesome, man.
so I'm
Thank you.
glad we were connected.
Thanks. Yeah, me too. We met through Bobby Hamrick.
Bobby Hamrick,
who's one of your superstars.
love him.
He's amazing. He is amazing.
Yeah.
He was, we were just talking before we started about, Picking in the Pasture, which came through Amy, my wife's side of the family, and a gathering that they had there, and a friend, and Bobby was there with several others. And we got to talking in the kitchen, and I told him a little bit of my background in the leadership space and leadership events, and mentioned Maxwell's name, of course. And Bobby's like, who you need to meet is my man. I guess your man, I was
his publisher at the time.
Okay.
Yep.
And say, man, you need to meet Chris. And I said, cool, let's meet. And then it wasn't long after that, we were doing an event we were producing on our end, and invited you and Bobby in. And I guess Bobby's mom came at that time.
That's right.
The three of you guys came. And that was kind of the kickoff of getting to know each other, and then learning about what you do and what we do, and see if there's common alignment. And there is, obviously. Yeah. So, but
I ran across that picture the other day.
Did you really?
By the way. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
From that day.
Yeah.
So,
do you look different, or you look the same?
It's
only, what is that, 8 years ago?
Not long ago. So
probably
got a few more gray hairs.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah. Well, I want to talk about, obviously, what you do and your passions, and also your past, and how you got into, of course, the music space. So if you can just give a little overview of what you do, that'd be awesome.
What I do, it's hard to say because it's not really based in reality.
Not based in reality?
No.
Okay.
But I work in music publishing.
Okay.
I've been doing it for a very long time, and I work with writers, find them, sign them to publishing deals, open up opportunities for them to write songs, and then I take those songs and try to get them recorded by different artists who are out there that you may be familiar with.
Okay. One or
That's
two.
the thumbnail, I guess, version of
the humble version of
it.
Yeah, the humble version. I love it. And so these aren't always necessarily performers. These are actual writers that are writing the music. And
so many songs that we hear on the radio were not written by the artists that we hear singing them. And those are the ones that I work with primarily. I do have a few artists that we work with on the publishing side. But a big majority of them are just straight songwriters.
They're songwriters. And are they in a lot of ways, and I've met a few over the years through you, and then watched a few perform and get caught up in the early Bluebird days, watching back when it was on television, I guess.
Yes.
Not anymore, but it was, you'd hear the actual original writer, and they weren't always, famous in your world, of course, because you know who they are, but most of them are kind of unsung heroes in a lot of ways.
Right. It's no different than the screenwriters that write scripts, for TV or movies or whatever. These writers get up every day and go to work with many times with someone they've never met before. And they meet,
paired with them?
Yep.
Okay.
And they will sit in a room and stare at a blank sheet of paper and get to know each other until an idea manifests itself. It's like, that's where we should go. That's what we should do.
Wow.
And
so part of your art, or part of what you do, is, or you look for the right people to pair, or do you look at that based on their skill set or personality, or both, or how do you do that?
Both.
Both.
It's both.
Okay.
I largely base it on their their skill set and their personality.
Mm-hmm.
For me, you have to get in a room with somebody and have a connection. And if you don't have that, it doesn't matter if you're both #1 hit songwriters. You're not gonna connect the way you should to have the song be what it needs to be. And so I found that if you can pair people up who have a lot of common ground, they A, get along, and B, their chances of writing a hit actually grow exponentially.
Yeah. Now, were you a writer yourself? Like, how'd you get into the field? Like, where was your start into the music arena there?
Right. I was not a writer. My dad was a minister.
Okay.
And he had our family singing Southern gospel music.
Okay.
When I was in 6th grade. He shoved a bass guitar in my hands and said, "Learn how to play this." And then we started playing. And so I just kept it up through high school, college. That's after college, I sang. And I moved to Nashville thinking, I'll get an internship somewhere. They'll hear me singing in the hallway and go, "Man, you shouldn't be doing this. You should be making records.
Come on in."
Yes. And then I would be discovered and be bigger than Kenny Rogers and Ronnie Millsap put together.
Of course.
So, didn't quite work that way.
Yeah. This was in the late 90s is what you're talking about when you started.
Yeah. Early or late 80s.
Late 80s.
Late
Okay.
80s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. A little longer than that.
Mid 80s.
We're creeping backwards. We're creeping backwards.
We are.
Yeah.
We are.
That's awesome. So we won't say nobody's going to get this. Nobody's going to see this. But the whole joy and the desire to be, have that part of your life. So what was the transition then? Did you just find that didn't work or didn't work out, or you got connected somehow eventually with the business side of it? Or
I did get an internship, and it was at a really small publishing company.
okay.
And the first time I saw the life cycle of a song get written in a room, you get tweaked up a little bit, go demo it, do a recording kind of like it would sound.
Yeah.
And then an artist cut it, and then it was on the record. It was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And then I started meeting these writers who wrote these songs that I sang, for all these years. And I don't know how many times I sang Smoky Mountain Rain. And then I met Kai Fleming. And it was just the coolest thing ever. You start learning all these stories about how these songs came about and the different changes in them. And I have never looked back.
Gotcha.
I love it so much. Writers are amazing. And if I talk about it too much, I'll end up getting emotional. But what they do every day is magical and it's inspiring. And then you and I get the opportunity to listen to it every day to help us with what we're dealing with through our day-to-day thing. Drove down here from Nashville. We listened to music on a playlist called Soundtrack of Our Lives.
Okay.
And it's all this music that means something to Kimberly and I and our family that was written the way these writers write songs every day.
That's so cool.
It's amazing. And we have that we can carry with us the rest of our lives, so.
And we're used to hearing the singer and the performer, which is how we know our songs, but you've gotten a greater appreciation from the life cycle of a song and watching these writers. And you hear the credits given a lot to people saying, hey, this wouldn't be the case if somebody didn't write it. But that had to be, so that triggered it, and you watched that happen, and you saw it go from a room to, singing it on the radio or on an album.
Right.
Yeah.
You have those experiences, and there are times where you have to I have to pull the car over and just sit down
Yeah.
or park because I'm crying,
Mm-hmm.
or it should just hit me a certain way because you're so close to that particular thing.
Yeah.
And you find these young writers, most of the people that I've ever signed, they have never had a publishing deal.
Mm.
And you find them and you watch them grow and elevate their careers and be inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just the coolest thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
I just love it.
That's so
I
cool.
love it.
That's so cool. And you I guess, get to hear the song before we do. So, I mean, you're
I do.
actually hearing, can you pretty much, so, I mean, this is now 20 plus years, 30 plus years, I guess you've been doing this.
Yeah.
Is there the famous 10,000 hours, of course, that, that we've heard talked about a lot. Do you feel like you can pretty much so kind of gauge stuff, or have there been surprises along the way where you're like, not really sure if that's going to be a hit and it turns out to be a hit?
I don't know that you can ever see them coming. So many songs we all know, their story, the way they've come to be as we all know them, has just been a series of, wow, can't believe that happened.
Really?
And but there've been a few times I've heard them and thought, wow, that's something special.
Mm-hmm.
And
does one come to mind, or do you think of any right off the top of your head?
There's two that come to mind. One is a song recorded by Tim McGraw called "Live Like You Were Dying."
Mm-hmm.
I heard that song, and
before he did it?
Yes.
Okay.
They had just written it. It was a guitar vocal, and two amazing songwriters who were in the Hall of Fame now, and but I heard that song and it's like, wow, this is something special right here. The other one that comes to mind is a song called "So Small," recorded by Carrie Underwood.
Of course.
That song just hit you right here when I first heard it. They were writing in a little house on Music Row, and she came downstairs and said, "I think we have one." And this was her first
I was gonna
week
say
of
this
writing.
this was the early days.
Yes.
Early for her.
This was she was getting ready for her second record. And she loves writing, and so she wanted to try, and so do it, and she's really good at it. And so first week of writing, she goes, I think this is one. And so we go upstairs, and I'm sitting on the floor of this bedroom in this house, and the three of them play this song, and it's just so good. Coming from a minister's background and being a person of faith, it really hit home.
It's cool.
A lot.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. Let's talk about, if you don't mind, you shared a story. We don't have to go into too much detail, but it was fascinating on the phone call you got from a buddy. I wanted to say it was somebody from England that called you during that first American Idol run and said, "Hey, we're usually getting, kind of pop."
Right.
Tell that moment again, because that was a lot of fun.
I had started a little writer management company, and it was a joint venture with a friend of mine that I had met on trips back and forth to London. And he had a company where they managed songwriters and producers, and they were a joint venture with a company called 19 Entertainment.
Okay.
So I was the stepchild of a stepchild.
Okay. Yeah.
And so we're 3 months in, 4 months in, and I get a call from him or from somebody at 19. But what had happened was Carrie was on the show that year, and they're talking in London. Hey, there's this girl on the show. We love her. She's great. She's country. She wants to make a country record. And this guy that I met in London said, we have a guy that we work with in Nashville. He's been
Talking
there.
About you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's been there a long time. You should call him. And a few days later, I got a call from somebody from 19, and I talked with them every day for the next 10, 15 years.
Wow. Had
Yeah.
she won at that time, or this was like she was about to be at, I mean, it was like getting towards the finals at that time, or
Yeah.
were they planning ahead, not knowing, or was it?
Planning ahead, not knowing,
Okay.
because they don't know
Yeah.
until the finale. But they knew that they wanted to work with her regardless of how that. And
Yeah.
so we're just kind of planning ahead, trying to figure out what we would do and
Mhm.
stuff. She came off the show, which was a whirlwind, and uh, ended up in Nashville CMA week.
Okay.
You know, a lot going on. It was Father's Day weekend, and we got a bunch of writers together. How we did it, I'll never know. But got a bunch of writers together who spent the weekend just writing songs for her for this first record that
What?
she
So
did.
that weekend,
So,
literally.
yes.
Holy smoke.
Yeah.
So was
Yeah.
she there interacting with them while it was going on, or did you say, "Hey, we're gonna go into, you know, our corner, write it, and then let you know what we've got"? I mean, how did that process happen?
She was there.
She was there
She
with you.
was there,
Okay, cool,
and she engaged with them. They got to know her,
cool.
uh, what she liked, what she didn't like.
Mhm.
There's one song on the first album called uh, Chakota, Ain't in Chakota, and a couple of guys at that retreat wrote it, and they were asking her all kinds of questions. What was your cruising route? At the end of a football game, and and asking her all
Just
kinds of
pulling life
questions.
things out of her at
Right,
that time.
right,
Wow.
yeah,
And the rest is history. That's so cool.
yeah,
That is
yeah,
so cool.
yeah.
That's a lot of fun. Well, and so it's I think about your process, and I remember, I now affectionately call you the ghost, no, the song ghost, what is it? The songwriter whisperer.
Yeah.
That's the whole, I call you the songwriter whisperer. And so that's how I tell everybody who you are,
Oh,
because you're one of those guys that has got the touch to be able to see both, I think, who the artist or what the song's going to be. Cause that's how you explained it to me one time. You're looking at
mhm,
this list of songs that need to be written, or something that needs to be written for a performer. And then you're hand picking and saying, let's pair these two people up, or let's get that person to do it.
mhm,
And that to me it's an art, it's a touch, it's something that you have to be very aware of what's happening, but you've done it pretty dang well over the years, and I think that's got to be so rewarding for you, to enjoy and to enjoy the success of your writers, to watch them have their success, like a Bobby, who when I
uh,
first met him, it was early days. I think he may have had a song get picked up by Nashville, the show, and,
mhm,
that was
mhm,
years ago. But
mm,
just to watch that success, so you're having to be both a mentor to these people too,
mhm,
and use some of those leadership skills you got in your back pocket
yeah,
when that
yeah.
comes in. But that's got to be so rewarding to do.
I love it. I love it when they come in and they like I said, most I've signed didn't really have anything happening, and or this was their first publishing deal, and to watch them get in a room with a veteran songwriter and the songs grow, and then they get these cuts on artists, major label artists, and begin to have singles and
Mhm.
success. There's nothing greater, there's nothing more satisfying to me than watching them succeed.
Mm.
And you know, I've just been blessed and fortunate enough to be around some really amazingly talented people
Mhm.
who know how to turn a phrase.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so
What blew me away, I think, when you were describing it, and or maybe Bobby did one night we were talking, is that you know I think about friends that have written a song, or, family that does, or, me playing around with songs. And it's like, yeah, it took me 18 years to write that song, or it
mm,
took me, it
yeah,
takes, but
right,
these guys are literally focused on, they're so good at what they do.
hmm,
They're professionals,
yeah,
really.
yeah,
But you put them in a room and they can walk out with a song, if not a bunch of options for songs. And I
right,
think one time they were saying, yeah, part of what I do during the year is write 100 songs,
hmm.
and which is just, that's a lot of songs. That's a lot.
One year he told me, Bobby
Yeah, yeah.
Hamrick, that we counted them up. He counted them up. There were like 140.
Holy
He wrote
smokes.
140 songs
How in the world?
in a year. And that's a lot. And so, but that's what you have to do to put it in. If you look at the analytics of it, it's a numbers game.
Okay.
You know, and so if 10% of what you do actually generates income,
Mm-hmm.
you have to write 100 to get 10 out there,
Mm-hmm.
a shot at earning some money. And of those 10% of those, one, I'm
Yeah.
not a mathematician, but you know, actually
Yeah.
has a legit shot at doing
Wow.
it. So
Yeah.
it's a tough business, and you have to have some really thick skin, but it's so rewarding, you know,
Mm-hmm.
when you hear those songs. You know, it's I was in Bucky's the other day
Yeah.
and heard 23 by Chase Beckham, you know, playing over the speakers. And it's like, wow. I mean, when you hear them in that context, it has more of an impact on you than when you just hear them in your office.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. That's
but
fascinating. So is it how, you know, because I think about inspiration, you
mhm,
know, and the
mhm.
artist being inspired. And then I think about that quantity. And my brain goes to, well, is this a system? Is there a system that's happening when they're writing? Or is it I'm inspired today, so I'm gonna write? I get that question a lot in our world
Mhm.
of publishing or writing books or creating courses. What would you say? What do you see from the better ones? Is it a this person's just always inspired, or you know, lock yourself in the room until something comes out, but you're following a method?
I think for each of them, it's different
Okay.
because there are definitely some that are 9 to 5. You know, I'm going in and I'm doing this, and if at the end of the day, I'm closing the book and I'm going home.
Hmm.
And there are other ones who just want to vibe it out and see what's in the air that day.
Hmm.
And so I think for each writer, you have to find your own rhythm and your own groove. And, you know, some want to write 5 days a week, and others can't write 5 days a week.
Mm.
But the thing that all of them need is, you know, you're constantly outputting.
Hmm.
Um, and the thing I try to encourage them to do is take a minute, get on some input, go walk around the lake,
Mm.
take a hike, watch a movie, you know, read a book, just be on input.
Hmm.
Go to the mall and just watch people walk around and listen to them talk,
Mm.
you know, um, because at the end of the day, that's who they're writing songs for.
Right.
And so, and it's easy to lose focus of that, you know, in a very insulary business in a place like Music Row.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of just hang out with each other.
Yeah.
And then the reality of what's happening in the lives of people around the country is different than what we're used to seeing every day.
Yeah.
So,
Do you get, I guess, in your line of work, do you get people that find out what you do and say, so I wrote this song. Let me, you know, because it's every layperson's, you know,
mhm.
vision while they're writing to go, this is going to get picked up. Somebody's going to hear it and they're gonna be like, oh, I want to write that. Or they hear the story of the album that was like this mom that wrote and was inspired, and then some major artist hears it. And is it,
Mhm.
do people, when they find out, do they go, hey, Chris, and slip you a song or two along the way? Or,
Often, often
yeah.
it happens,
Yeah.
you know.
And in your mind, when you
The
see that, of course, I know who you are, and you're, I'm sure, generous and kind to these people. But in your mind, are you thinking probably what most people in this space thinks is, you know, how competitive this is, and we got pros that are writing 140
mhm.
songs. Is that how? How do you process that when you see it?
I try to be open-minded about it, but if I'm being honest, I'm not expecting to hear anything. You
Yeah.
know, when I do workshops and when I talk to young writers, um, what I look for, a lot of people will ask, "What do you look for?"
Mhm.
It's like not a hit song.
Mm.
I look for a hit songwriter,
Ah.
I'm interested in what they're gonna do when they take their gifts and talents, and then I take what I do and combine it with what I have access to, and we combine those things. It's much more powerful than any one of those by itself. And so I look for potential and what they can do. At a certain level, everybody's a genius, but the ones who get a lot of activity have been doing it longer, and they've learned the nuances,
the rhythm
of what it takes,
Yep.
a little.
Let's talk about Music Row, where your office was. Paint that picture, because you gave us the tour. We walked down the street. You were pointing out these houses. Describe what that is. Where was that? And what's the meaning behind that?
When we met, I was in an office right on 16th Avenue.
Yep.
And which is Music Row.
Oh yeah. Which is one of my dad's favorite songs, of course.
16th Avenue.
Oh yeah.
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 And so the office that I was in was the home of Decca Records when they first started in Nashville, Tennessee. It was back when 16th Avenue was a two-way street. And Owen Bradley ran that record label when they opened. If you don't know Owen Bradley, you should probably look him up. He produced Burl Ives, Loretta Lynn, Patsy Cline, all the big artists. He was working with them. He's one of the architects of Music Row. And my office was his office at one point, where we met.
Yes.
And they had not changed a thing. The
it
building,
was a time capsule. I mean, I was walking in going.
Yes. It was owned at the time by the son of Felice and Boudleaux Bryant, who wrote Rocky Top and bunch of big hits, pop hits. And anyway, he wouldn't let you change a thing. So there was all these Formica ridden countertops all the way around the room.
Yep.
Cabinets set up for albums and things like that. The paneling, I mean, it wasn't imitation panel. This was legit paneling. From back in the day.
Was that 60s, 70s, or earlier?
Yeah, 60s.
Yeah,
probably.
And it felt like
early
you
60s.
walked in, and I thought, Chris, man, we can get an interior decorator to take. And you're like, hold on, no, let me explain the magic behind this moment. And so it was so cool once you.
It was cool. Then that building became MCA Records, and a guy named Irv Woolsey had that office, and he was the head of promotion for MCA Records, and they had just signed a guy named George Strait, and that was Irv's office. They spent a lot of time together, and Irv ended up managing George until Irv passed away not too long ago. And but a lot of history happened in that room.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was a cool place. So I just decorated it like you would if we were filming The Sopranos.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but down right out your door, and you're right on 16th Avenue.
16th Avenue.
So I remember you pointing. You're like, this is where Willie was. This is where, I mean,
right.
All these songs.
It was all right there. A couple of houses, or the two houses down, was a place called Combine, CBS Song. They had an attic. All these publishing companies and writers hung out in houses up and down 16th and 17th Avenue. And Willie, Christopherson, Waylon, there was a attic up in the top of this house. And they would go up there and write for 3 days, 4 days.
Amazing.
Yeah. Back during that time, this was before I got to Nashville, they would do that. They would get together and just disappear for 3 or 4 days at a time, a week at a time. And no one would know where they are, and they would come driving up the driveway or whatever.
That's amazing. That's so cool.
And it's just a very close-knit community.
Yeah.
And everyone is willing to get in and help the other person.
Yeah.
Yet at the same time, it's very competitive.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's kind of an interesting dynamic there.
How has that changed? I mean, since what you've seen in the last 10 to 20 years, what would you say has changed, or is it similar?
I think it's still competitive, but I think there's for me, I think there's a feeling of we're all in this together there, unlike any place else. Because everyone has the same challenges, they have the same things that they struggle with, and so they get together and they talk about those and what can we do, and and so so's making a record, and this person, they share information like that, and so yes, it's very competitive, but at the same time, it's collaborative, and I think that's the interesting thing. I read a book, uh, written by Rick Rubin. It's so good, and but he talks about the competitiveness and collaboration,
Okay.
and he tells a story of Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys listening to Rubber Soul by the Beatles. And Brian Wilson is just like, man, so good. I love it. If only I could ever write something like that. And he would just listen to that album over and over again. Fast forward to the Beach Boys, Brian Wilson writes God Only Knows. And Beatles are making a record. I cannot remember which one it was, but the whole time they're making that record, they're listening to Pet Shop and that song over and over again. First, he says in the book, first time McCartney heard the song, God Only Knows, he cried.
Wow.
And so I think that spirit of competitiveness turned into collaboration in an interesting kind of way, because Brian used the inspiration from the Beatles to push him to that song, which pushed the Beatles to another level. So that competitiveness, or that, man, not I want to beat him, but I want to do that. I want to do that. And really drove them to that and made that a collaborative experience, for all of them, without ever sitting down and talking about it.
That's awesome. How do you, when you think about the writers you have and that you're in charge of, or managing, or encouraging and lifting, what of that do you take to them? What is that a principle you share with them, or that you see, or that you encourage, both the drive to do it, the competitive side, but then also keeping a posture of collaboration or camaraderie? Or is it difficult to do now, given where everybody works and how?
No, yeah, I think it's important for them to have that. I think one of the things that I really encourage them to do is just do what you do best. Don't try to be something you're not. Don't try to be more commercial, or don't try to write a country song. If you come from a different genre, just be who you are. Stay in your strength zone, and trust that I'm going to put you in the room with people who are not going to look at you like you have three eyes. But everybody, when they first start in Nashville, they want to try to do what everybody else is doing. But everybody else is already doing that, and so if you're coming from another genre, they want you to do what you do best, because then you have the opportunity to create something fresh and unique, and I think it's a real struggle for some people, because they want to have that success that they hear on the radio, so they try to duplicate that, and then you're just making up a song, It's not anything special or unique,
I think when you say that, it reminds me of course, the hot topic right now in writer land is AI and GPT, and watching how quickly that can assimilate language.
Mhm.
What are you saying with that? Or where's your kind of your world as that's entered in? Pretty like, hot on the market there, but what are you seeing happen with that?
I don't It's interesting because I don't think AI, and some people will argue with me on it, but I don't think AI is gonna ever replace this.
Mhm.
And you can have it do a million things, but I'm not sure it's got the heart of who you are in it. And that's the one thing writers will always have that AI doesn't. And I think there are good parts of AI that can be used in the music industry, and I think there are parts of it that are worrisome.
Mhm.
And there's copyright laws to be worried about, and things like that. Where AI draws from. Um, but as far as creating something, I don't see it grabbing this.
Mhm. Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but
It's
uh,
interesting seeing that evolve and how that's
mhm.
being used. And basically you can't cheat the heart is what you're saying. You
No,
can't.
you
You
can't.
can't.
You
Yeah.
can't. Everybody feels it
Yeah.
and responds to it.
Hmm.
Because that's why we listen to music, for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
In most cases, I think.
Mhm.
So
It's a tool. I mean, I
yeah.
remember early days of when I first picked up at a bookstore, the first, I guess it was the synonyms, book of synonyms,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know,
Right.
and going, what's a synonym for this? Or what is that?
Yes.
So you watch that. So I guess that tool part of it can
Hmm.
be an assistant. Like you said, it's not all bad.
Yeah.
And there's some
Yeah.
advantages.
Well, I think in most writers' backpacks, they'll have that
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
thesaurus,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah. Exactly.
whatever.
That's cool. No, that's great.
Yeah.
I figured you're on the front line watching that,
Yeah.
or getting hit with that. So
It's interesting to
yeah.
see it all happen,
Yeah.
so.
One other thing I want to talk about too is the guy you introduced me some cool guys when I came over to your office that day.
Mhm.
One guy was sitting on the couch, and you were like, his dad was the guitar solo from Roy Orbison's
Yeah.
Pretty Woman. Remember
Yeah.
that? What
I
was? Tell me
do.
his name. I want to say Moon something or Moon. What's his name?
His name's Shelby Kennedy.
Shelby. Okay,
Shelby. And his dad is Jerry Kennedy.
Okay.
Jerry
Yeah.
Kennedy ran Mercury Records for many years,
Mhm.
produced Roger Miller and uh, early Reba Records and Statler Brothers
Mhm.
and a lot of people.
Yeah.
Jeannie C. Riley.
Yeah.
He produced Harper Valley PTA.
Wow.
But he was also a session player and played that lick on Pretty Woman,
That's awesome.
in
Yeah.
session.
Shelby
So
was cool. He was a lot of fun
Shelby
to
is a
meet.
great guy, has a heart for music, a passion for the creative world, and making sure people stay doing what they do best. He's one of my biggest encouragers, and just a good friend.
That's
Truth.
awesome.
Everybody needs a truth teller, and
He's it for
Shelby's
you.
my truth teller. Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
He was a cool guy.
Yeah.
The other was when you got us, we were trying to get into the Bluebird, and it was like, man, it was so hard. This is 2019, 2018.
Mhm.
And I remember Amy and I went back to our hotel and we're like, that's all good. We knew it was hard to get in there. It was not going to work out. And then you called us at like 10 till 9 and you're like, hey, where are you? And I said, well, we're in the hotel. And you go, can you be to the Bluebird in 10 minutes? Then we're getting ready for bed, ordering room service. And you're like, 10 minutes. I said, yes, sir, we can. So we
That's
flew
funny.
down there and went. And one of your buddies, I guess somebody on his couple of, or his family list couldn't make it.
Mhm.
And it's, you'll instantly name him, but Hall of Fame. I wanted to say David, but it was I Can't Make You Love Me by Bonnie Raitt was one of his songs.
Alan
Yes,
Shamblin.
it was Alan. Yes,
Yes.
yes. And
Yeah.
so he and I guess one of his co-writers, who between the two of them had written hundreds of songs and it was just a magical night. But Alan is an amazing guy. He was so cool. And
So he is as real as you can get. A man of faith and values, and wants to make sure that the song is right.
Hmm.
And I just think the world of that guy. And when we have writers like Alan Chamblin making songs up for us to listen to, uh, it's going to be good, you know. And he's not one that's going to write them. He lives with them for a while.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, he wrote a song with another friend, Tom Douglas, that set on a work tape. They'd forgot about it for 7 years, and Alan was going through old ideas and found this work tape of House That Built Me,
Yeah.
and said, "Man, we should get this out, tweak it up a little bit. I think we got something here." So
Tom, that was who's there.
Tom Douglas.
Yeah, they're one of the 4 that was
Oh,
there that
gotcha.
night. So the 2 of them.
Yeah.
And boy, they went back and forth and back and forth. And I'm like, they wrote all these songs.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
If you ever get a chance to, I think it's on Paramount. It was for a while. Watch a documentary called Love, Tom.
Okay.
And it's Tom Douglas just going through songwriting 101.
Really?
It is so good.
Cool.
Yeah, it's amazing.
We'll check that out for sure.
Yeah.
You and I have a love for leadership and reading and learning and being better. And you are bringing leadership to this specific, genre, bringing leadership principles and leadership ideas. So you're not just a guy that's flying by the seat of his pants, nor are you somebody who's so all business. You have heart and you have the enjoyment of learning and growing professionally. You know, it takes me back to when we started invited you to the Maxwell deal and then doing other things there. But are you still passionate about that and still staying in the middle of the growth world?
I love it. Growing every day is so important to me. And I feel like as a leader, I'm growing every day and learning every day. I learn so much from the people that I get to work with. I have the opportunity to work with because we're all different. We're all different ages, and I learn so much from them. And it's interesting because as much as I love to see that growth in songwriters and watch them elevate their careers, it's so cool to watch that among our team and to watch them grow as young music executives and figure it out and become leaders of a group of writers, or doing what they do. It's amazing to watch it and watch their confidence grow. And we don't have a big team, and music publishing is a complicated business, and but everyone on our team has a job. We all have a lot of jobs, but everyone has a job that if they don't do it, it adversely affects everybody else.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So we have to communicate. We have to stay in touch. We have to work together, because if this person doesn't get this done, it affects this person's job and this writer's livelihood. So we're counting on you to do that.
That's a true team. Yeah.
Yeah. And and sometimes one of the things I'm learning and continually trying to learn is how to manage that dynamic between everybody, and maintaining a culture that where everybody feels excited about what they do, and then we don't get caught up in the business part of it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times in the music industry, we allow the business to take over creativity. And every time you do that, I think you get the cart before the horse. It's the music business, not the business of music. And I think you need to let the music drive the business. And when you let that happen, things happen in a great organic way that allows both of those sides to grow in a really cool way.
Well, I think I would love to invite you in sometime for us to do a deep dive on what you know and how you do what you do, because I think there's a lot of people out there who would love to learn from a master in this field. I know you don't call yourself that, but I certainly look at that, and I know there's a lot of people that would say it'd be amazing to learn how to be better, how to be a better writer, how to be better in the music business. So I think we should do something together.
I would love to do it.
I feel like something brewing here, man.
Yeah.
I really do.
I would love to do it. Being able to share what I've learned over the years, the music industry is a unique place, and it's a unique industry. It's not like the concrete business, it's unique. But we all know it. We all use music every day.
Yeah.
And so, I would love to do that, Jamie, any time.
All right. So that's the formal invitation.
Okay.
And we got it on record now. So.
All right.
Man, I'm so glad you are here, and I'm so glad to be able to sit down with you and spend time together in the studio, and hopefully spend the rest of the day talking about what we're going to do and where the future heads for Chris.
Let's do it.
Let's do it, man. All right. Up high.
All right.
Up high. All right, man.